And joining me now is Tom Gross. He's a political analyst. He joins us live from Tel Aviv, Israel, to talk to us about the Israeli spyware used to target phones of journalists and activists and the investigation finds there. Good afternoon, Tom. Thanks for joining the program.
Hello.
Now, the Israeli NSO group and its Pegasus malware are being linked to thousands of smartphone numbers, including those of activists and journalists. Now, the NSO has denied any wrongdoing, but what's the latest that we know about this case?
Well, obviously this news is making waves. However, it's not actually new in the sense that NSO has been under scrutiny before, a few years ago in the media. They argue they strongly deny the accusations, I should say, first of all. They argue their technology is used for good purposes. They say it has helped break up sex trafficking rings, paedophile rings. It's prevented attacks on civilian aircraft. It has located missing and kidnapped children. It's located survivors trapped under collapsed buildings and so on. But clearly, this technology can be put to malign uses. And there are calls in Israel to make sure that it's under very tough scrutiny on who it sells its software to. For example, it's sold to Mexico. Now, apparently 15,000 of the 50,000 phone numbers on the list published, highlighted in The Guardian and Washington Post and other newspapers, 15,000 of these 50,000 are in Mexico. And some of them have been politicians and journalists. Now, I'm told that the license to sell to the Mexican government or Mexican police forces by NSO was taken away by the government of Israel in 2017, 4 years ago. But clearly, once they've sold software, presumably for legitimate purposes, to Mexican law enforcement, who's trying to clamp down on drug cartels and so on, it's been misused, and it's a tremendous problem. And clearly, there are calls in Israel and indeed in other countries for much tighter regulations on exactly what is done with this software.
Okay, now I know you say that the group actually deny the wrongdoing, but what could be the main motive behind such a move? And well-known journalists from globally renowned news networks reported they were attacked. 2 women close to journalist Jamal Khashoggi were also targeted. So what are the hackers trying to secretly obtain?
Well, just to be clear, NSO denies it, and they say they only sell to law enforcement agencies or governments, and it goes through quite a careful process. But the problem is, once you sell, for example, to the government of Saudi Arabia, it's hard to control what the Saudis will do with it. So NSO has, well, I'll quote from them. They say, "Our technology was not associated in any way with the heinous murder of Jamal Khashoggi. We can confirm that our technology was not used to listen, monitor, track or collect information regarding him or any of his family members." So that's what NSO says. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. But even if true, how do they know once they've sold it, say, to the Saudi security forces who claim they need it to, say, track bomb plots targeted against Saudi Arabia for example, ISIS? How can NSO or any other company know exactly what the Saudis are doing with it? So it's not that NSO is deliberately supplying this technology to be used against innocent journalists or politicians, but clearly this is a problem not just for NSO, but there's in fact a worldwide market of these kind of cyber security companies that are producing increasingly sophisticated technology which is able to penetrate people's private listening devices and phones and computers and so on. And it is a big problem. On the other hand, this technology is also used legitimately by law enforcement bodies to keep us all safe, to disrupt terrorist plots or, drug running operations and so on.
Okay. Now, as you said earlier, this isn't the first time the group has been accused of spying. But just looking at this hypothetically, if we were to be attacked, how do we find out that we've been targeted, and what steps should people take to avoid that?
Well, I'll speak for me personally because I'm a journalist. Ever since Edward Snowden, almost a decade ago, the American NSA whistleblower revealed that the American government was listening to almost every phone call and email in America, or at least had the capability to listen to, then all of us that, my private email account, like many people, is run through an American company. So Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, all American companies. So all of us, I think, should be careful about what we say online. Lots of people have been switching from WhatsApp recently to Signal and Telegraph and other communication methods. And, I think for the ordinary citizen, it is a concern, and one should be careful what one says in a text message or phone call. However, for people such as journalists or human rights campaigners, they obviously should take more cautious precautions. They should probably go to companies that specialize in protecting their electronic devices from hacking. And also, I should point out that in Russia, already some years ago, the Kremlin stopped using email. They use old-fashioned typewriters where they type something out, put out on the piece of paper and deliver it to the person in the other office. The Russian government decided that they couldn't trust any electronic communication for sensitive matters. So this is a real problem for everybody because we all rely on electronic communication. I would say for the ordinary citizen, if you're not up to any wrongdoing, then you really don't have to worry. But for human rights campaigners and journalists, they need to probably protect their devices by going to professionals who will advise them exactly what measures to take. And there are many such companies. Indeed, in Israel, there are many good companies that advise on that, as well as companies in America and Britain and elsewhere.
Okay, Tom, thank you so much for joining the program. We appreciate your contribution.
Thank you.
Now, dry, hot and windy weather has